Hello, and welcome to The Delicious Recipe here on UPRN. And you can be listening to us on YouTube, on I believe it's the UFO Paranormal Radio site there. Also, Facebook, it's on United Public Radio if you're listening live. And we're going through StreamYard, so we do have a chat that's available. So if there is any questions that do pop up, please feel free to put them on there. And if I have time to check them out there, I'll check them and see how this goes there anyways. But tonight we have a lovely guest author from Ireland. And she has a book that's come out, Where After, and it's dealing with the soul and I guess where it goes after we're done. And actually, you know what the thing is? It's best to let my guest here, and I'll introduce her, Mariel Forde Clarke, and it's better to have her explain because I could not do a good enough job that she could do. So welcome, Mariel.
It's absolutely a pleasure, Dale, and greetings from the Western Shores of Ireland.
Yes. Yeah, we're almost halfway across the world from each other.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? It's wonderful. We're connecting through the ethers. How magical.
Yes, exactly. So why don't you tell our listeners out there that are not familiar with you how this all started, how this all began to where you got to this point of this book here, because I went through your book and it's very interesting. It's sort of broken up into 3 parts and you do other things as well. You do counseling, I guess, whatever, seminars and stuff like that too. But let's start from the beginning and get going through the process that we got to here.
As they say in Ireland, Dale, how long have you got?
Well, we got just under an hour, so we'll see how we can do this.
Oh, we'll only be scratching the surface. But I suppose, Dale, I come from a family of very intuitive and psychic people. My grandmother was extremely psychic, and her mom had a 7th son. And my grandmother had a 7th son. So it was doubly gifted with a 7th son and a 7th son consecutively within the family. And then my brother was extremely psychic, who returned to spirit in 2002, my young brother. So I was used to, talking to angels, talking to fairies even, and, thought it was all very normal, thought everybody could see and talk to spirit guides and angels. I knew who they were from my grandmother, but it was an assumption I had that everybody was the same, that I wasn't alone in the world. So in 2000, not in 2000, but when I was 15, I had an incredible experience with Mother Mary. And that Mother Mary continues to be one of the ascended masters that works with me in my healing modalities. And then to kind of throw, as they say in Ireland, the cat among the pigeons, I decided I was going to study science. So I studied science and became a serologist. And then in 1992, I had my death experience, and my whole world changed after that. And I didn't understand why I survived, because at that time, Dale, I did not want to live, because I was very unhappy, living in a loveless marriage, in a very dysfunctional one. And when I was told I had cancer, and very advanced cervical cancer, it didn't bother me. And that time, you see, Dale, in Ireland, you didn't talk about your problems. The cliche was you made your bed and you better lie in it, So it was all, and you didn't bring shame to your family. There was no divorce at that stage, and they were just after initiating separation. So it was a very challenging time for me as a person. And after my death experience, which was actually phenomenal, I wanted to go back to that sacred space. I wanted to be in there, in that beautiful, omnipresent love and music, heavenly music that I felt during the death experience. And so 3 months later, I wanted to end my life, because it was the easier than coming forward and telling my truth. And then my father, who had died the year previous, stepped before me in the doorway as I was going out to end my life, and put up his hand, and his old Irish cliche, Amalia Cudgeen, keep your powder dry. So that's how my journey began. And then in 2000, and then I started studying all the healing modalities. and I still had the science going on in my left brain and my left thinking and analytical mind. And I studied all the Eastern cultures and Buddhism, Sikhism, Theism, you name it. And, I loved their philosophies. In the Eastern culture, there was birth, death, and rebirth. And in our Western world, it was just birth and death. There was nothing. It was hasta la vista for once you left this plane, So I had to find out why was I blessed to survive? And when my surgeon that time had came to me and he said, Mariel, you were so lucky that we actually got you back, because he said, you were dead. And he said, the more you were bleeding outwards, so the more you were hemorrhaging outwards, so the more blood we were giving you, infusing, it was coming out. So he said, it's a miracle you're here with us. And I just looked up at him and I said, why the hell didn't you just let me die? Yeah. So, but my journey, Del, has been just an incredible peaks and troughs, mountains and rivers, big boulders in the way. It has, just because I'm psychic and intuitive doesn't mean that everything runs smooth. Far from it.
Did you find when you were studying these Eastern religions and stuff like that, a commonality throughout them, or was there a sort of a difference in how they viewed the afterlife?
It was just incredible, because I was able to go back even to the 4th century to Pythagoras. Pythagoras' theorem that we studied at school and tried to master. And he was in the 4th century, and his philosophy about the afterlife and the soul leaving the body was incredible. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and later Descartes and Swedenborg all believed that the soul was that most magnificent and divine part of the human psychic, and that survived the physical death. And that was the main commonality they all had. And even though they were centuries apart, but they believed that the soul was the most psychic part of the human experience. And to study the soul and do the journey of the soul. And then I later became a shaman so that I could do soul retrieval. And, it's been an incredible journey. But as I said to you, there, Del, not without its ups and downs, peaks and troughs, and now more than ever, there's so many challenges for people, unfortunately, and especially our younger people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always found this sort of interesting because I've looked into a lot of this, and even when dealing with paranormal stuff and just even with anything that's going on in the world, the stuff that we don't see as the physical ourselves or in our sort of our little bubble in that, but this whole idea of the afterlife and that about that this is like a transition period. Mm-hmm. And then you have in the Eastern religions with this reincarnation, but like you said, here we have sort of like this death that happens here in say North America, and then either go to heaven or hell. That's the end. That's the end of the journey, right? But there's a lot of, I guess, debate or topic of discussion on that, how this sort of changes and how we sort of view what purpose that we do have here while we're alive here and what goes on after.
And I suppose, Del, what we forget is that we are multidimensional beings living in a multidimensional universe. And there is far more to us than our 5 senses. And people, we limit our thinking, we limit our mind. And that's why when there is the near-death experience or the out-of-body experience, we transcend beyond the mind, the limitations of the mind. And we're able to journey outwards into the inner planes, which is it can be done spontaneously. It can be done through meditation, especially the out-of-body experiences, and there is a whole vista of universes out there that we need to kind of start understanding and to start awakening to the supreme consciousness that overlights this entire universe. There's a supreme intelligence. For even Einstein, Del said, he says he began to, and I love Einstein, there are many different sayings belong to him because I had to study him through my science, but he said that there was a supreme consciousness which was far more intelligent and supreme than the comprehension of any man. So that coming from him was an incredible, considering the physicist that he was, and for him to be able to say that. And you spoke there earlier, about, the hell and the death situation. And, I have been really reassured by my guides, especially, we've had, in particular Ireland, we've had so many suicides in the last particular 2 years. I work with suicide prevention programs, and I also work in the aftermath of suicide. And bless anybody who has lost a loved one, Del, through suicide. I know in Ireland, the old thing was there was a huge, huge stigma about suicide, or any, and that the soul was doomed and the family was doomed. And I mean, such a load of absolute hogwash.
Well, that came mostly from the Catholic Church, right? Because that was their whole doctrine, that if you had taken your life, you were not allowed to be buried in the consecrated Catholic graveyard, right? And that was a stigma on the family. It was, and that anybody that committed suicide automatically went to hell. And
absolutely. And Del, you're so right. My father, God rest him, I remember one of my father, who was an amazing awakened soul, so he was. And I remember sometimes on, say, like this time in November now, we visit the graves of the loved ones past. And my father, I remember we going in to this old cemetery, beautiful cemetery. But at one stage, he throws his leg out over the wall to get out to just like a field. And he went very silent for a man that was always talking and yakking. And there was nothing. I couldn't see anything. There was just a flat flagstone on the ground, and the grass kind of growing over it. And we got back to the car, and he was very silent. And I said, Dad, what's wrong with you? And he says, that's an old friend of mine, he said, and he ended his life through suicide. And he said the family were totally frowned upon. He was buried outside, beyond consecrated ground, as you said, Del.
Yep.
And that stigma stuck with that family all their lives. And neighbors didn't call anymore. My father did, apparently. But that's what I'm saying. So maybe you're right when you're saying it's the Catholic Church thing. But there was a huge fear that time that these souls went to hell. Right. And I've been so reassured by my guides, but they've constantly been reminding me, Del, to reinforce that every soul who ends their life through suicide, they are met by their guides or loved ones past, and they are brought to the other side. When they're brought to the other side, they're actually put in a kind of a sacred holding, so that they can be, it's called a period of restoration. So for this period of restoration, they're in a kind of like a sleep state. And then they're gradually awakened in time to the reality of their death. And then they're shown their life review. Then they're shown the mistakes. Then they're shown what they could have done differently. And then through counseling, which there is spiritual counseling on the other side, then they do get the soul gets the opportunity, if it wants to reincarnate and address the mistakes that they made in the previous lifetime.
See, that's an interesting sort of concept there. That's sort of the part about that. The whole reason that you're on Earth, I guess, or alive here now, is to learn something and to, I guess, pass a test, I guess, in a way, to go to somewhere else, right? Does that sort of make sort of sense in a way? So if you did end your life early, then you sort of have this chance to redo and come back and redo it again, I guess, in a way. That's sort of one sort of belief there in this reincarnation stuff. I think in a lot of with the Asian religions that depending on what you did, you reincarnated back into either something good or something bad. Like maybe there's a lot of different thoughts in this. And
there is lots of different thought programs on Adele. But from my understanding, and I have really delved into this over many, many years and researched a lot of it, because I needed to know for my own scientific mind. Right. I need proof. I'm like the doubting Thomas. I need proof. And it's like when my brother came to me 6 months after he had passed to tell me that there was something wrong with my mother. And I said, well, Joseph, you need to come to me 3 times. And that time, my mom, bless her, she had lost her baby, even though he was 36. He was always going to be her baby. Right. And, I said, you have to come to me 3 times before I believe you. So cutting a very long story short, Dale, I took my mom to the doctor and I said, there's something wrong with her tummy. And he looks at me with these squeamish eyes and the glasses. And he said, if you told me there was something wrong with her lungs or her heart, he says, because she smoked 60 years, then I'd say something. So I had to beg him to send her for a scan. But within 3 days, it showed that my mother had just hours to live. And we just got her to the operating theatre within hours. There was a AAA aortic aneurysm in her stomach. And my brother in spirit world came and told me that we needed to look after her. Now, my family like that, Dale, while I'm very in tune and all of that, none of them, they call me Mystic Meg. They don't, are away with the fairies. So I'm used to that. But I couldn't tell them it was Joseph that had come to tell me that Mammy was so ill. So there is different principles and while, as I said a long time ago, there is so much proof for the afterlife, and no doctor, no physicist, no theologian, no quantum physician has ever come back to tell us that there is no afterlife. But we have hundreds and thousands of doctors, of psychologists and theologians that will come back, and they have not alone come back, but doctors also who endorse the phenomena of afterlife. And there is so much there, Del. There's volumes of research to prove the afterlife.
Well, my wife there, she's doing I think a book on the afterlife experience. She was a nurse and she dealt with a lot of palliative care and stuff like that. And she had lots of experiences with people and seeing how happens at that sort of that end time. I always had this question, and this is sort of something that I always sort of thought about, is that we here on Earth there, we think of our mother, father, brother, sister, grandchildren, that as this sort of linear timeline of age thing there. But also the thought about is that the soul is ageless, and that we were in one life, you could actually be your mother's father, or you could be your mother's sister. There is no sort of hierarchy in the part of the afterlife. We as humans, we think about it, we go and say we pass on, and we say we saw our father or we saw our mother, but it's actually we're just seeing another spirit that has no hierarchy over us. Do you ever sort of see that at all, or that sort of reasoning? Or
no, absolutely. And the fact that I do a lot of soul retrieval, Del, I would see somebody that they'd be talking about, that there'd be a fractured relationship within the family, say with a father or with a mother, to discover through the soul retrieval that they are in soul investigation, that this mother and this father were linked to them in a previous lifetime, and that there was some damage done or something corrupt or something violent happened. And that's why the friction was carried through, the imprint was carried through into the next lifeline. And it happens all the time. And there's amazing study done, which is incredible, by Professor Ian Stevenson on reincarnation, especially with children. And there is the proof that they have carried the birth defects, or they've carried the birthmarks into the next life. Say some guy was maybe shot in the back. He'll come into the next life with maybe a sore shoulder or sore back, or maybe a birthmark on it where the bullet went through. Somebody could have something in their neck, and they talk about, the throat not being able to express itself, but it would be where maybe a sword or a lance went through the neck, and that carried through into the neck. There is huge evidence. And Professor Ian Stevenson, he traveled the world for, I think, about 40 plus years, and he investigated and he carried out intense research. He went by train, he went by plane, he went by boat, you name it, to investigate these afterlife phenomena and these reincarnated children in particular, nearly 3,000 of them. And his research is incredible. So also is Hertz Trudeau who has endorsed Stevenson's work as well. So it's amazing, and I have seen it myself. But when you see the research of over 30, 40 years by renowned, credible doctors, that gives it real beef.
Yes, I was just, as you were talking there, just it popped into my mind there, because I remember watching this movie, and I watched this a couple times. It was about searching for the Dalai Lama, and it was that the succession of the Dalai Lama was not even connected by family and stuff like that, but it was these monks would go out and they would find a child, and they would lay out objects on a table, and they would see whatever the object that the child had picked and how it related to them. I guess it was sort of looking for the succession of the Dalai Lama being reincarnated, and that would be their spiritual leader that would continue on in that. And that I guess that was the point or the thought I was going there, was that we sort of look at this connection as our family unit here, but how did, when you're thinking about souls afterwards, they could be connected to somebody that was not even connected to your family that's in Australia or in New Zealand or in China or in Europe or stuff like that, or in South America. It doesn't necessarily have to be an internal family as a family line. Is that
well, the soul has many strands to it, and
right.
Not all of the soul reincarnates here on the earth. We could be in another system somewhere else, and I know that scares people as well, and that's why I try and keep it simple. Like I was guided through my book by my guides to keep it factual so that it was going to be understandable. But for me, I totally understand that we have many aspects of our soul, and only part of it incarnates here on earth. If you couldn't believe that, Del, off me, but only part of it. So there are many aspects to our soul. So we could, and the highest aspect of our soul, which is our I am presence, that's our spiritual and the most divine part of us, that remains on the other side. And that's what keeps us connected by our silver cord to the physical body while we're here on earth, while we're having the human experience.
Okay, I've heard this before, and why don't you explain what the silver cord is?
Okay, right. I'm sure everybody will be familiar with the umbilical cord, which keeps the baby nourished and fed and watered, as the fella says, in mother's womb. And that's the lifeline during those 9 months of gestation. But when the baby is born, the umbilical cord is cut. So mother and baby become independent. But something similar happens to us then when we are born. We have what is called the silver cord. This is our connection to the highest aspect of ourselves in spirit world. This silver cord is our lifeline. This silver cord nourishes and feeds us. It drives our soul, it drives our heart, it drives our mind, it drives the physical body. And this is what allows us to have outer body experiences. And outer body experiences, for bless you, or as they say in Irish, Gialin. Gialin. And this silver cord, it's limitless. It is limitless. And when we're having an outer body experiences, even though an awful lot of people will say, Del, I've never had an outer body experiences. We do. Now, sometimes how you'll know you're having an outer body experience, you could be in a deep, deep sleep state. And then towards morning, you'll get a jerk or a jolt. Your body will just all of a sudden feel as if it's coming down. That's your soul re-entering your body, because the soul vacates the body. It comes and goes at will during our dream and sleep state, because it goes out into the astral plane, so it can pick up information for us. It can solve problems for us that we can, in the morning, our minds is fresh, and then a problem we had, all of a sudden we have an answer to it. And our soul is that great big messenger. But the only time the silver cord then disengages is at the moment of physical death. We can have near-death experiences like I have, even though I don't know why they call them near-death, because you are dead. You're dead. You're pronounced dead. So when with their near-death experience, the silver cord still is attached, and we rise up above our bodies and we look down at ourselves. We can see them trying to resuscitate us. We travel into this beautiful place, which is the afterlife, or the heaven, wherever you like to call it, Ananda. And we are told it's not our time, and we are sent back. And
Right.
then we feel that jerk in the body as well when the soul comes back into the body, and that's called catalepsy as well. So the only time it disengages is when your time on earth is complete, when your sacred contract is finished, then it disengages. And that's the difference between the near-death experience and the outer body ones. The outer body ones, you come back into your body.
So why did some people there that they experienced or that they've had near-death experiences explain that or say that they've gone to like a hell or something like that, to a fiery furnace, whereas some people say they've gone to like a heaven, a great place of these near-death experiences? Why is there such a contrast in that? Is that sort of what we put on ourselves as we're thinking when we die, or is that something totally connected to where our silver thread is lined up, or silver cord is lined up to at the present time when we have this experience?
Funnily enough, Del, my understanding of this, and I'm totally open for correction on this, but my understanding of this is when we have our life reviews on the other side, when you're having your near-death experience, you are taken to the place, to the level of consciousness that you have in the world right now. It's the same when we cross over. You go to the sphere or to the level of the level of the, the level of understanding that you have right now of your world. Right. So it's, if you believe that there is this beautiful place, or if you have a faith in it, it's not got to do with religion. It has, everybody transitions to the afterlife, regardless of religion, race, creed, age, sex, you name it. Everybody transitions there. But we transition to the sphere or to the level that we are familiar with here on earth. And some people are awake, very much so, and they believe in an afterlife. They believe that there is a God presence. They believe that there is something, far more powerful that keeps this multi-dimensional universe together. And we go to that level. But also those that have not been, shall we say, of goodness and kindness, those who have wronged others, those that have murdered, those that have raped, those that have done dreadful atrocities, like during the wars and things like that, and the atrocities that's going on now undercover, those people will go to the lower echelons. They won't go to where, say, for the want of a better word, the Mahatma Gandhi or the Mother Teresa's. They will be on the lower echelons. The Hitlers, the Osama bin Ladens, the Mussolinis, they go to the lower echelons. But according to my guides, there is what is called the law of progress. But they do get an opportunity for spiritual growth. But I'm also told by my guides, some of those with that type of mentality do not want to grow to the light. They're quite happy muddling around in their den of iniquity. So that's the difference.
Right. Yes, you always find that I have so many questions about this stuff. It's sort of, because I think about this, not all the time, but it does come up to, I always wonder, when you have, we have so many differing religions around the world, right? And there's, not to say which one is right or which one is wrong and stuff like that, but if you were following one of these things that you, even in the Bible where they had, God had tribes there go kill another tribe for a god, right? So these people are actually going out and murdering. So where's the thought in that of how, if when they die for that, where they figure that they're doing it for a righteous cause of their belief, or that they've been told that they're doing that, right? And you think about this when you get into these what are they, Saudi Arabia area and stuff like that, where they're for their religion, right? And this is what they actually believe, and this is that Muhammad or whatever powerful person that they want to believe is their spiritual leader, that they are doing it for religious reasons, and they are going to be rewarded in the afterlife.
Yeah.
Just this whole part, because we could think of ourselves and how we view our spirituality, our whatever religion you want to believe in, stuff like that. But this whole learning of lessons and stuff like that, what lessons, how are you supposed to know which religion you're supposed to, or what spirituality you're supposed to sort of follow to learn your lesson, I guess you'd say you learn, I guess.
I suppose that's a multifaceted question, Del.
Yeah.
A multifaceted question.
Yes.
First of all, always remember, all religions were founded by man, never by God. Every religion under this sun was founded by man to connect with God. God never founded a religion. There was never meant to be a religion. There was meant to be what they call a church, founded on heartism, founded on love. So anybody that proclaims to do things or to carry out these atrocities in the name of God, it's a lie. It's a lie. God does not. God is omnipresent. He is divine love and light, and nobody gets away with what they do in the name of God that hurts another, and that earns karma. And karma is a bitch. It comes back and bites you on the ass, and you have to repay it. Every deed we do that is not in alignment with God's purpose, or that fulfills somebody's need, or that nourishes another body's soul, everything we do that is godlike earns us grace and virtue. Everything we do that disgruntles another, that causes them harm, has to be paid back, and you earn karma for that. And the same way, Del, if you abuse animals, those that abuse animals, that creates huge karmic debt as well. So it's, I know people that have mistreated animals. That's why we have to have so many animal shelters set up in Ireland. Animals have to be taken from people because they have mistreated them. And, but all of that earns karma as well. So it's not just what you do to your fellow human being. It's also what you do to those that are coexisting with you, like our animals.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly that's the point that I've tried to make clear there, that religion is totally different from spirituality.
Totally.
And I've always said this. I have said this to my wife there too as well. I says, what does God need with money and gold, and need with you burning some crops and an animal on an altar? He says he makes everything anyways. That's just a people that are looking for power and control. And like don't get me wrong, I'm not against churches and that or religion. I think they're great. I'm spiritual in my own way, but I think it's great. Churches are great for people to have communion around with the other, meeting other people that are like-minded in that. But I don't see the point of God needing money and needing other things like that. I think that's all part for human consumption and human just human thought, I guess.
Well, you see, Del, like that, when we incarnate on earth, we're given free will. And our guides and our angels that work alongside us, that help us on our journey in this lifetime, they have divine will. So there is a difference. So when we're given as human beings, even though we're spirit beings occupying this human body, we are given free will. But what we do with that free will is our choice, be it good or bad. And that is why that God has been accused for creating all this disharmony in the world. God has been accused of illness. God has been accused of murders and killings and plane crashes. It's mankind that has perpetrated these acts against each other. It is man. It's the power, greed, materialism. It is mankind that is doing this to its fellow brothers and sisters of the light. And until we wake up to that, then we have a long way to go on our evolutionary path. But it's mankind that is doing it to each other. So as I said, God has been blamed for a lot of things. God is a loving presence. He is he, she, or it, whatever you like to call it, is there to guide us, to receive us back into his infinite consciousness when the time is right. But we mustn't forget that materialism has become the God. Man has tried to become God. Medicine has tried to become God. We're trying to give longevity now to life. We're trying to be gods in our everyday living and actions. So we need to kind of go back into the God cell that is within us, that divinity that's within us, and go back in there and see how can we make a change for the better.
Right. Yeah, that's great words. Yeah, I totally agree with that there. Like yeah, it's just this whole understanding, and it's always, I've always sort of looked at this as that there's always been a competition between man for, I guess, to be. I'm not saying, I don't want to people. I'm not saying man as in just male. I'm saying mankind, humankind, or whatever. You get into this whole SJW correctness speak out there now. It just drives me nuts. Just drives me nuts. Yes. But the whole thing out of it, though, is that you see that there's always been this sort of competition to have more, to be more, to get more, and stuff like that, and not just exist or just to enjoy. There's this, like, I guess, just to enjoy what is out there and do well to others. I noticed this really large thing when where I live here up in Thunder Bay, which is Northern Ontario. Smaller community, like 100,000 plus people, and people look at each other. When I lived down in Toronto, down in Southern Ontario, there was millions of people. Everybody looked at their toes when they walked around. No one looked at anybody in the eye. Nobody was ever happy. It was just, they sort of just existed in their own little bubble. That no one looked around at anything, and it was such a dark a dark contrast in between things. And you just wonder, like, how are all these people existing in a large area that don't even know anybody or know your neighbor?
But do you know what, Dale? You said the word there yourself. How are these people existing? Yeah. And that's the word. People are just beginning to exist. They're not living anymore. Right. They're not living, they're existing. And we have, and I think the biggest thing right now for humanity is that we have become separated from that God source. We have lost the connection. Too many of us are going outside of ourselves rather than taking the journey inside. We have lost that divine spark that is our divine birthright. We were created with a spark of divinity within us. And it's how we choose to use it when we're here on earth. And do we use it for good? Do we use it for good purpose, or do we use it for financial gain? Do we use it for green? Do we use it for power? And I think so we have lost that connection. So there's a huge divide between the God cell that is innately in us, than the God cell that is kind of cultivated right now. Society, materialism, everything has kind of made life more kind of abstract rather than more meaningful. Right. And I think our journey back to ourselves is going to be the most significant journey we will ever take in the coming years, because we have lost the connection to the God particle within us. And it's like we all have it, and it's nothing got to do with religion, nothing got to do with religion or creed. That God particle is within us. But the light, it's gone on dimmer switch. We need to crank it up a few notches or two.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Yes. So let's go into the three parts. So I guess you've broken down your book here, and the book is Where After, and that's where do our loved ones go after we die, right? So you have like a part one was like the fear of death, part two, navigating the uncharted waters of grief, and then three, love and forgiveness. So let's tell our audience out there how you came to writing this book here.
Okay. As I said, when the spirit, when I'm not listening to my guides, when I'm ignoring them, because sometimes I carry out a moratorium myself. I just couldn't be bothered. I just said, just leave me alone now, because sometimes it can be quite intense. And in particular, nighttime is the time that I'm most active with my guides. And sometimes I just want to say, oh, just bugger off for a while. and shut down. But I'm supercharged at night anyway. I've always been, and it doesn't get any easier. And then I just say, okay, what's the message? So in 2018, I had a serious ski accident, and I had to bless the snowboarder that took me out. I didn't curse him, you're right?
Yeah.
So, but I was for about 5 months, Del, that I could not walk. I was totally invalided. So these major crises happen in my life when I need to pay heed and do something huge. And so with the ski accident, I was awakened every night, and I was shown a pyramid, first of all. And the pyramid was the scientific model, the medical model, and my own spiritual experiences with clients over the last 30 plus years. And then the formation of this book. And it was so important. They showed me, when I say they, I mean my guides, they showed me it was like a whiteboard and all the different pieces being pieced into it. And then one night I said to them, "Hi guys, there is no chapters here. I haven't seen a book without chapters." And they said, "No, it's going to be in parts." And then I was to write my own affirmations, which I have done. I had to put in my channeled meditation where you meet your loved ones. There's so much of me in there, but the scientific and the medical proof was paramount by my guides. And to keep it in simple but practical terms that even the most skeptical person on the planet would have to scratch his head or her head and say, there's a grain of something there. I might look further, So that is how Whereafter came. Now, I had written many articles, all for years and years, articles for magazines, for newspapers. My night classes were always full of handouts. So it didn't bother me writing, but the idea of writing a book never came to my mind. I do have a deck of beautiful 44 deck of cards, unpublished, sitting on my desktop, and maybe that's the next thing to come. But that's how and the three different parts, which, as I was saying to you, Del, the scientific, the knowledge about all the famous scientists, going back to Swedenborg, Descartes, Plato, Aristotle, and their belief in the afterlife. So it's not a new phenomena. We're going back thousands and thousands of years. And then, I mean, what is an amazing read is the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is, for centuries, has been read to the dying to prepare them for their outward journey. And then the Aztec Song of the Dead goes back to the ancient civilization. So it's not a new phenomena in the last 100 years, but all the medical proof that is being put forward now by the medical professions, like Dr. Iben Alexander, the neurosurgeon, like Dr. Raymond Moody, who was the first one to prove scientifically that the brain survives consciousness beyond the physical body. And then Dr. Penn Van Lommel, he endorsed this concept hugely from his years and years of research with clients that had been clinically pronounced dead, and that there is something greater beyond the brain, because all neural signs have shut down, like mine had. No pulse, no heartbeat, no nothing. You're dead, you're gone, and then we wake up and we have all these we've been on the other side, and some have met people, there's huge commonalities, but they vary slightly. But the main theme is rising above your body, being drawn into a tunnel or being drawn into a light. And so these doctors, have endorsed the scientific proof now that the afterlife is real, and that there is something beyond this, the physical body. And then we have like somebody like, and I studied with him, beautiful Dr. Brian Wes, and he was a psychiatrist, and he was head of psychiatry in the States, someplace in the States, and he believed in nothing because he had the scientific mind, only what could be analyzed and factualized and data based. So until he met one of his clients. So his journey is incredibly mapped out on, I can't think of the name of the book. Oh yes, Many Lives, Many Masters. So there's an incredible amount of knowledge there, Del.
Yeah.
And then there is my own spiritual experiences with my clients and what I have witnessed at the deathbed as a spirit midwife. And it's just fascinating. I mean, what I have seen, Del, by these eyes, not these eyes, but my spirit eyes,
Yep.
It's just so humbling and so precious and so sacred. And to be beside those that are about to make their transition is phenomenal. And what I have witnessed is incredible. And more recent times, one of my friends whose daughter Lucy was, she had been diagnosed with a very rare form of leukemia when she was 9 years of age, and had bone marrow transplant and had all the hallmarks of success. And then fast forward 3 years later, when she was 12, the diagnosis with it overnight came back and she had 6 weeks to live. And of course, her mom was a young mom and a single mom, and she was devastated. So I sat with her during the final days. But Lucy wakes up from her semi-conscious state, and she grabs her mother's hand, and I'm witnessing this. And she says, Mommy, you're not to be afraid. You're not to be afraid, and you're not to be sad, because Peter has been with me, and Peter said that he's going to take care of me, and he wants you to know that you're not to be sad, and he wants you to know that I'm going to be taken care of. The ironic thing about this story, Del, is Lucy never knew she had a brother called Peter because he had died 3 years before she was born. You know, there's amazing. I have seen so many people rise up in the bed and reach out into the nothingness. But I see what's happening. I see the veil between the two worlds thinning, and I see them. I see their entourage that's waiting for them. And that's another thing, Del. And as in particular in the last 2 years, when people have been not able to be at the bedside of their loved ones because of various restrictions. And nobody, I just want to reassure, nobody dies alone. Nobody. Always, it's part of the divine plan that loved ones past come. They're even there days leading up to the transitioning soul. They're even there to escort the soul, and they prepare the soul sometimes by, you know, and I've seen them say, is that you, Johnny? Or is that you, Mary? Or no, and I've seen the other side. I don't want to die. I'm not ready to go yet. I've seen the resistance as well. And I think from my experience, the resistance comes from people that are afraid. They're afraid to die because of the program, the old program that was, I suppose, manufactured in their mind from years back. And those that are willing to surrender, they have a belief system, not so much a religion, but a belief system that there is something beyond the veil. There's something beyond, you know. So there is beauty. I have seen such beautiful phenomena, Del, and I feel very humbled and blessed to be part of it.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Holy jumping. I think that this is, I guess we don't have much time left. I did wanted to get into this or just mention this there too, is that what do you think about now with science? They're trying to merge science and technology, humanity and soul consciousness into machine. This whole technocracy that has been sort of been talked about more and more over the last sort of 20 years, but it's been actually over about 40, 50 years of bringing the soul into the machine or the ghost into the shell.
And you know, coming from a science background myself, which makes it even more daring for me, Del, it's great because I've studied the sciences and I've been part of science programs, you know, throughout my studies. But you cannot put the soul under a microscope and analyze it.
Right.
And you cannot put a religion under a microscope and analyze it. It's not to be analyzed. It is a sacred essence. It is an energy that you cannot. you know, some people say that the soul is X amount of ounces, because when they weigh the body afterwards, there is so many ounces. That's only what I've heard. I will ask my guides about that. What weight is the soul? To me, it's an energy. It's an energy, and it's like, because when I see somebody that is about to make their transition, especially when it's been a slow process, it's different when it's sudden death. Sudden death is different. The soul leaves the body at the point of impact. And that's also good to remind anybody who has lost a loved one through sudden death, that even if it was drowning or fire or accident or falling off a mountain or whatever, the soul leaves the body at the point of impact. So the physical body doesn't feel the pain or the shock. That's just, I've been just reminded by Spirit just to say that. But it's so important that, you know, you can't analyze, as I said, you can't put it under a microscope and analyze a soul. It's not spiritually acceptable, and it's not spiritually kind of how would you say, spiritually possible. It's not possible, but it's not a commodity. It's not a commodity to be analyzed. And I know they're trying to merge science and spirituality, and there is a lot of books out there now merging science and spirituality, science and psychology. And, you know, while there is an overlap, but what science is only a theory until it's disproved. We mustn't forget that as well. It's only a theory until it's disproved. And I have to say, Del, sorry, Einstein, dare I go back to my lovely friend Albert Einstein? I play cards with him every now and then, you know. But Einstein, he said, you know, the only thing, and I love it, and it's very fitting for tonight here, the only thing that science can prove with certainty is that it can prove absolutely nothing at all.
Right. Oh, we'll leave that on that there, since we're right out of time there. That's a perfect way to end it. And so you want to just tell the people out there where they can find your book, and if you have any Instagram, Facebook, or stuff like that, or if they want to follow you along there.
Okay. Well, Del, thank you so much. And it's been my humble pleasure to be sharing this sacred space with you. My website is www.marielfordeclarke.com. All my platforms, social media platforms, can be got from there. The Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, they're all there following on from that. And my book is available whereafter with John Hunt Publishing and all the Amazons globally.
Awesome. Okay. And Laura Lee, you there?
I am.
Okay, there you go. I just talked to her. She's producing my show there for tonight until I get everything all ship shape and that. And you will be coming on Laura Lee's show, The Angel Rock, I believe, later on this month as well. November 22nd. That's what she's. There she goes.
I look forward to that. That'll be good.
So I want to thank you very much for being a guest here on The Delicious Recipe. And that was very interesting. And I hope maybe in the future there we could do this once again.
It's been an absolute blessing, and bless you all and bless every listener. And I send my love and light to you.
Awesome. Okay, Laura, wrap her up. Let's see.